On a frozen New Year's Eve in New York City, a Korean mafia boss walks into a crowded restaurant with his aging mother. Across the room, a tired waitress balances plates and dreams she's too exhausted to chase. Their worlds should never collide. But when his mother sees something in Pamela that her son refuses to acknowledge, a quiet revolution begins. Just two souls learning that love doesn't break you, it builds you. This is Midnight Promise, a story about finding home in the most unexpected person. Hello, fam. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Heartbeat Stories. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional storytelling that will leave you breathless. Tell us where you're watching from, and thank you so much for your support. Mrs. Choi set down her teacup with deliberate precision, the porcelain meeting the wooden table without a sound. Across from her, Hyun-ki scrolled through his phone with a detached efficiency that had become his default expression. The restaurant hummed with New Year's Eve energy, laughter spilling from nearby tables, but their corner remained an island of measured quiet. She had been watching the waitress for the past 20 minutes. The young woman moved through the cramped aisles with a dancer's awareness, never bumping a chair, never rushing despite the obvious chaos in the kitchen. African-American, generously curved, with natural hair pulled back in a simple bun that somehow looked elegant rather than hurried. But it wasn't her appearance that caught Mrs. Choi's attention. It was the way she smiled at an elderly couple struggling with chopsticks, taking time to demonstrate the proper grip even as another table flagged her down. The way she placed a complimentary appetizer before a mother with 3 rowdy children, understanding without words that the woman needed 5 minutes of peace. Mrs. Choi recognized grace under pressure. She had spent 40 years as the wife of a man whose business demanded constant vigilance, whose every social interaction carried weight and consequence. She knew performance from authenticity. This waitress was authentic. Hyun-ki, she said in Korean, soft enough that only her son would hear. He looked up, his dark eyes focusing on her with the immediate attention he gave everything. 34 years old and already carrying the world in those shoulders. Too serious. Too alone. Yes, mother. What do you think of our waitress? His gaze flickered toward Pamela, who was pouring water at a neighboring table, then back to his mother. She's efficient. Professional. That's all you see? What else should I see? Mrs. Choi smiled, the small private smile she reserved for moments when her brilliant son revealed his profound blindness. Then I suppose I'll have to look for both of us. Before he could respond, Pamela approached their table with a fresh pot of barley tea. Can I get you anything else? The kitchen's still taking orders for another 30 minutes before we switch to the countdown menu. Please sit for a moment, Mrs. Choi said in English, gesturing to the empty chair. Pamela's eyes widened slightly. Oh, I appreciate that, but I really can't. My manager. Just 1 minute. I'm an old woman, and I've been wanting to talk to you all evening. Mrs. Choi's smile held both warmth and an unmistakable command, the kind that came from decades of navigating rooms where power spoke in whispers. Pamela glanced toward the kitchen, calculated something in her head, then lowered herself to the chair's edge. 1 minute. But if Chef starts yelling, I'm running. Fair enough. Mrs. Choi leaned forward conspiratorially. Tell me, what's your name? Pamela. Pamela King. A strong name. How long have you worked here? Almost 2 years. Pamela's posture remained alert, ready to spring up at any moment, but her voice carried genuine friendliness. It's a good restaurant. The owners treat us well. And do you enjoy it? The work. Pamela hesitated, and in that hesitation, Mrs. Choi saw layers. I enjoy meeting people, making them feel welcome. There's something satisfying about being part of someone's good memory, you know? Like tonight. Everyone's celebrating, and I get to be a small piece of that. But, Mrs. Choi prompted. Pamela laughed, a sound like wind chimes. But nothing. It's a good job. You're diplomatic. That's wise. Mrs. Choi poured tea into Pamela's empty cup, reversing the traditional roles. I've been coming here for 7 years, every New Year's Eve. My late husband chose this restaurant because the owner was from his hometown in Korea. After he passed, my son continued the tradition. She glanced at Hyun-ki, who had set down his phone and was watching this interaction with undisguised wariness. He's dutiful, my Hyun-ki. Perhaps too dutiful. Tradition is important, Pamela said carefully, accepting the tea with both hands in a gesture Mrs. Choi noted with approval. My grandmother always said that remembering where we come from keeps us grounded when the world gets crazy. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. Raised 7 kids on a teacher's salary in Atlanta. Used to say love and discipline were 2 sides of the same coin. Pamela's expression softened with memory. She passed 3 years ago. I think about her every day. The best ones stay with us, Mrs. Choi said quietly. My husband has been gone 5 years, but I still set his favorite tea out sometimes. My son thinks I'm being sentimental. I don't think that's sentimental at all, Pamela said with sudden intensity. I think that's love. Love doesn't just stop because someone's gone. Mrs. Choi reached across the table and squeezed Pamela's hand. The gesture surprised all 3 of them. Hyun-ki's jaw tightened imperceptibly. A crash from the kitchen shattered the moment. Pamela jumped up. That's my cue. Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Choi. I hope you both have a beautiful new year. She disappeared into the kitchen chaos, leaving mother and son in loaded silence. Mother, Hyun-ki said carefully. What are you doing? Having a conversation. Am I not allowed to be friendly? You're never simply friendly. You're strategic. She laughed, delighted. Maybe your father taught me too well. But tell me truly, what did you think of her? Hyun-ki picked up his phone again, but his mother noticed he didn't actually look at the screen. She seems kind. Hardworking. She's genuine. In our world, that's rarer than diamonds. Mrs. Choi paused, choosing her next words carefully. When was the last time you had a real conversation with someone who didn't want something from you? Mother. When, Hyun-ki? He set the phone down with more force than necessary. What do you want me to say? That I noticed her? I noticed her. She has a nice smile. She treated you with respect. But she's also our waitress, and he stopped himself. You're what? Too important? Too busy? Too broken? That's not fair. Nothing about your life has been fair since your father put that burden on your shoulders. Mrs. Choi's voice gentled. I'm not asking you to marry the girl. I'm asking you to remember what it feels like to be human. To connect with someone without calculation. Your father's world nearly killed him with its coldness. I won't watch it kill you too. Hyun-ki looked at his mother with an expression that broke her heart, exhaustion wrapped in iron control. I don't have the luxury of being human. You know what I inherited. The families, the obligations, the enemies waiting for any sign of weakness. If I let my guard down for one moment, then let it down here. In this restaurant, on this night, you're not a boss. You're just my son. She gestured around the crowded room. Look at these people. They're laughing, arguing, celebrating. They're alive, Hyun-ki. When was the last time you felt alive? He didn't answer, but something shifted in his face. Pamela returned with their entrees, moving with controlled urgency. Okay, so the galbi is the best you'll ever have, and the japchae is my personal favorite, though don't tell Chef I have favorites or he'll think I'm not impartial about his cooking. She arranged the dishes with practiced efficiency. Can I get you anything else? Your recommendation for dessert, Mrs. Choi said promptly. What would you choose if you were celebrating? Pamela grinned. The honey pastries with black sesame ice cream. It's not traditional, but Chef's daughter suggested the combination, and it's honestly perfect. Sweet without being overwhelming, you know. We'll have 2, Mrs. Choi said before Hyun-ki could speak. Coming right up. Pamela started to turn away, then paused. Mrs. Choi, thank you for earlier. For treating me like a person instead of just the help. You'd be surprised how rare that is. I raised my son better than that, Mrs. Choi said pointedly. Pamela's eyes met Hyun-Ki's for the first time with real curiosity rather than professional courtesy. He held her gaze, and something unspoken passed between them. A question, perhaps. Or a recognition. Happy New Year, Pamela said softly, then vanished into the crowd. Hyun-Ki watched her go, and his mother watched him watch her. What are you planning, Mother? He asked without looking away from where Pamela had disappeared. Nothing at all. But I think the universe might be planning something, and I've learned not to stand in the universe's way. The evening progressed with the inexorable momentum of all New Year's Eves, the restaurant growing louder and more celebratory as midnight approached. Pamela appeared and disappeared like a graceful ghost, always present when needed, never intrusive. Mrs. Choi observed her son tracking those appearances with increasing frequency. When Pamela brought their dessert, Mrs. Choi excused herself to the restroom with theatrical timing. Hyun-Ki found himself alone with the waitress, who had somehow occupied his thoughts for the past 2 hours. Your mother is wonderful, Pamela said as she set down the plates. My grandmother had that same energy, you know? Like she could read your entire life story just by looking at you. It's a useful skill in her world, Hyun-Ki said, then wondered why he'd phrased it that way. Her world? As opposed to yours? He hesitated, caught between truth and the careful lies he told everyone. We see things differently sometimes. Generational perspectives. Pamela nodded, but her expression suggested she heard what he didn't say. I get that. My mom thinks I'm wasting my potential waiting tables. She wanted me to finish college, get some corporate job, climb the ladder. She shrugged. But I like this. I like meeting people, being useful. There's dignity in service, you know. Yes, Hyun-Ki said with unexpected fervor. Yes, there is. She studied him with open curiosity now, the professional mask slipping. You don't seem like the typical New Year's Eve crowd. Too quiet. Too watchful. Is that bad? It's interesting. Most people come here to forget themselves for a while, lose themselves in the noise. You look like you're trying to find something. The observation struck him with physical force. Maybe I am. Did you find it? Before he could answer, a group of drunk businessmen at a nearby table began shouting for service. Pamela's expression shifted instantly to professional concern. I'm sorry, I need to. Go. Of course. Hyun-Ki watched her navigate toward the chaos with impressive calm, defusing the situation with a combination of firm boundaries and warm humor that left the drunk men sheepish and cooperative. Mrs. Choi returned to find her son staring at nothing, his dessert untouched. Interesting conversation, she asked innocently. Mother, please don't. Don't what? I haven't done anything. Yet. And you won't. She's a nice woman with her own life. I'm not going to disrupt that. Who said anything about disruption? I'm simply noting that you've smiled more in the past hour than you have in the past month. If that's disruption, perhaps you need more of it. The countdown began at 11:50, restaurant staff distributing noisemakers and champagne flutes. The energy shifted from celebratory to electric, everyone suddenly aware that they stood on the edge of transformation, however illusory. Pamela moved through the crowd distributing sparklers, her smile brilliant and genuine. When she reached their table, Mrs. Choi pulled her down into an impulsive hug. Thank you for making this evening special. For an old woman, these moments matter. Pamela returned the embrace with equal warmth. You're not old, you're elegant. There's a difference. I like you, Mrs. Choi declared. Hyun-Ki, don't you like her? Mother, he said in Korean, mortified. But Pamela just laughed. I don't speak Korean, but I definitely recognize a mom being embarrassing. Mine does the same thing. All mothers have the same job, Mrs. Choi said conspirationally. Embarrassing our children into being human. The countdown reached 30 seconds. The restaurant vibrated with anticipation. Pamela handed them each a sparkler and a lighter. Make a wish at midnight. Chef says it's tradition. What will you wish for? Mrs. Choi asked. Pamela considered the question seriously. Honestly, I think I'll wish for the courage to want more. I've been playing it safe for a long time. Maybe this year I'll take some risks. That sounds like a very good wish, Mrs. Choi said meaningfully. The final countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The crowd roared each number. Pamela lit their sparklers, then her own. 7, 6, 5. Hyun-ki found himself standing without conscious decision. 4, 3, 2. Pamela's eyes met his across the golden shower of sparks. 1. The restaurant exploded in noise and light and joy. Strangers kissed strangers. Friends embraced. Champagne corks popped like small celebrations. And in the center of controlled chaos, Hyun-ki and Pamela stood 2 feet apart, sparklers burning down to nothing, neither looking away. Happy New Year, she said, barely audible above the din. Happy New Year, he replied, and meant it with an intensity that frightened him. Mrs. Choi observed this tableau with profound satisfaction, though she was careful not to let it show. She had planted a seed. Whether it would grow depended on forces beyond her control. But she had learned long ago that the best gardeners knew when to water and when to simply wait. The moment broke when another waitress called for Pamela's help. She touched Mrs. Choi's shoulder in passing, a gesture of affection that made the older woman's heart squeeze. She didn't touch Hyun-ki, but the air between them felt charged, full of potential. They left the restaurant an hour later, Mrs. Choi leaning on her son's arm more than strictly necessary. The January cold bit through their coats, crystallizing their breath. Thank you for indulging me tonight, she said in Korean. I always do. Yes, but tonight was different. You were present. Engaged. I haven't seen that version of you since before your father died. Hyun-ki helped her into the waiting car, his bodyguard maintaining discreet distance. It was a nice evening. Will you go back? To the restaurant? I suppose so, next year. I meant sooner. Perhaps without your meddling mother. Mother. I'm old, Hyun-ki. I'm allowed to meddle. It's one of the few pleasures left to me. She settled into the leather seat with a satisfied sigh. That girl is special. Don't let your father's world make you too afraid to see it. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying them back toward the fortress of their real life, the world of obligations and dangers that Hyun-ki navigated with exhausting vigilance. But as they drove through streets still drunk on New Year's hope, he found himself thinking about a waitress who moved through chaos with grace, who talked about her grandmother with reverence, who saw dignity in service, who had looked at him like he was just a person instead of a position. His phone buzzed. Business. Always business. But for once, he let it go to voicemail. Inside the restaurant, Pamela collapsed against the kitchen wall at 2 a.m, her feet screaming, her smile muscles aching from overuse. The other servers moved around her with similar exhaustion, counting tips, comparing stories from the night's chaos. You okay? Asked Maya, her work wife of 2 years. I'm good. Great tips tonight. I saw you talking to that seriously hot Korean guy and his mom. What was that about? Pamela shrugged, though her pulse quickened at the memory. Just being friendly. They were nice. Girl, he was watching you all night. Couldn't take his eyes off you. He was probably just bored. Rich people get bored easily. Rich and fine, Maya corrected. Did you get his number? Maya, he was here with his mother. On New Year's Eve. That's not a man looking to pick up waitresses. Maybe not. But he was definitely looking at you like you were more than just his waitress. Maya poked her shoulder. When was the last time you let someone see you? Actually see you, not just appreciate the service. Pamela didn't answer because the question hit too close to something she'd been avoiding. When had she become invisible? When had she decided that her own story was less important than making cameos in everyone else's? "My New Year's wish," she said suddenly. "I wished for the courage to want more." "Then maybe the universe is listening," Maya said. And maybe that seriously hot Korean guy was the universe's way of saying it's time. They finished closing the restaurant at 3 in the morning. Pamela walked to the subway through streets littered with the debris of celebration, confetti, and broken champagne flutes catching streetlight like scattered diamonds. The city felt different in these hours, simultaneously exhausted and expectant, the space between ending and beginning. At home in her small studio apartment, she kicked off her shoes and sank onto her thrift store couch. Her phone showed messages from her mother, her best friend, her cousin, all wishing her Happy New Year, all asking what her resolutions were. She didn't know how to explain that her resolution was simply to stop hiding, to stop making herself smaller to fit into other people's comfort zones, to believe that she deserved to take up space in her own life. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. "Baby girl, don't you ever apologize for being a whole person. The world's gonna try to make you shrink down, fit into some neat little box. But you're not made for boxes. You're made for wide open spaces." Pamela pulled out the journal her best friend had given her for Christmas, opened to a fresh page. At the top, she wrote, "Things I want." The pen hovered. When was the last time she'd asked herself that question honestly? She began writing. Small things at first. A new mattress, because hers made her back hurt. Time to actually cook real meals instead of restaurant leftovers. Then bigger things. To finish her degree. To stop dating men who treated her like an option instead of a priority. To open her own cafe someday, the kind of place where people felt welcome regardless of their bank account. At the bottom of the page, almost without thinking, she wrote, "To feel seen." Her phone buzzed. Maya had texted, "Girl, I looked him up. Your hot Korean guy? He's not just rich. He's rich rich. Like, owns half the commercial real estate in Koreatown rich. Also, possibly connected to some shady business?" Internet's being vague, but there are rumors. Pamela's stomach dropped. Of course. Of course, he wasn't just a normal guy taking his mom to dinner. Of course there was a catch. She typed back, then good thing it was just a nice conversation and nothing more. But she didn't delete her journal entry. And she didn't stop wondering what it meant that she'd wished for courage, and the universe had sent her a man whose eyes held both loneliness and danger in equal measure. 5 days passed before Hyun-ki returned to the restaurant, this time alone, at 2 in the afternoon when the lunch rush had died and the dinner prep hadn't yet begun. The hostess recognized him immediately, her posture straightening with unconscious deference. "Mr. Choi, welcome back. Your usual table." He hadn't known he had a usual table. "Actually, I'm looking for someone. A waitress who works here. Pamela." The hostess's eyes widened slightly. "Pamela usually works dinner service. She won't be in until 5. "I see. Thank you." He turned to leave, feeling foolish. "But she sometimes comes in early to prep," the hostess added quickly. "I could check the kitchen? Please." She disappeared, leaving Hyun-ki standing in the empty dining room, second-guessing everything. What was he doing? What did he possibly think would come from this? His life didn't allow for spontaneity, for following impulses sparked by a stranger's smile on New Year's Eve. But his mother's words haunted him. "When was the last time you felt alive?" Pamela emerged from the kitchen in jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She stopped when she saw him, surprise flickering across her features before settling into cautious curiosity. "Mr. Choi, is something wrong? Did we overcharge your card or something?" "No, nothing like that." He realized he hadn't actually planned what to say. I wanted to thank you for making New Year's Eve pleasant for my mother. She enjoyed meeting you. That's kind of you to come all the way back just to say that. Pamela's tone was friendly but guarded, the professional mask back in place. Actually, I was hoping we could talk. Do you have a few minutes? She glanced toward the kitchen, calculating. I'm technically here early to do side work, but I guess I could take a break. Wanna sit? They settled at a corner booth, far from the hostess's interested gaze. Afternoon light streamed through the windows, gentler than the harsh evening lighting he'd seen her in before. She looked younger in it and more guarded. Look, Pamela said after an uncomfortable silence. If this is about what I think it's about, I should probably be straight with you. I'm not interested in being anyone's secret or their rebellion or their walk on the wild side. I've been that girl before, and I'm too old for it now. Hyun-ki blinked. I wasn't. Because I looked you up, she continued, her voice calm but firm. You're not just some guy who takes his mom to dinner. You're someone important, someone with connections and power, and probably a very specific kind of life that doesn't include African American waitresses except in very particular contexts. And I respect that, I do, but I'm not interested in being anyone's exception or their guilty pleasure. Is that what you think I want? He felt stung, though he couldn't entirely blame her for the assumption. I don't know what you want, Mr. Choi. That's why I'm asking directly. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw both vulnerability and steel. She had been hurt before. She had learned to protect herself. He recognized the armor because he wore his own version every day. I don't know what I want either, he admitted. But my mother said something on New Year's Eve that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She asked me when was the last time I felt human. And I realized I couldn't remember. I operate, I function, I fulfill obligations. But feeling? Actually connecting with another person without calculation or strategy. It's been years. And you think I can fix that? Pamela's expression softened slightly, but remained skeptical. No. But talking to you that night reminded me that I used to be different. Before my father died, before I inherited his responsibilities, I used to believe that life could be more than just surviving it. He met her eyes. You asked if I found what I was looking for. I think maybe I found the reminder that I should still be looking. Pamela was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. That's either the most honest thing anyone said to me in years, or the most sophisticated pickup line ever. It's honest. I promise you that. Okay, so what now? What exactly are you proposing here? Coffee. Conversation. Getting to know another human being without any expectations beyond that. If you're interested. And if you're not, I'll leave and never make you uncomfortable again. Coffee, she repeated. Just coffee. Or tea. You seem like someone who might appreciate good tea. A smile tugged at her lips. I'm definitely a tea person. Coffee makes me jittery. There's a place in Koreatown that serves traditional Korean tea. Very quiet, very low-key. No one would bother us there. Because you own it, she guessed. Because I'm friends with the owner's grandmother, who treats me like a wayward nephew and would protect our privacy fiercely. Pamela laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. You know what? Fine. Tea. But I'm setting some ground rules first. I'm listening. 1. We're just two people getting to know each other. No power dynamics, no savior complexes, no pretty woman fantasies. I'm not looking to be rescued, and I'm not interested in rescuing anyone else. Agreed. 2. We're honest with each other. I don't do games. If something bothers you, you say it. If this stops working for you, you tell me directly. I can do that. 3. We move at my pace. If that's too slow for you, I understand, but I'm not rushing into anything just because someone powerful decides they're interested in me. That's more than fair, Hyun-ki said quietly. Can I add a rule? Go ahead. If my world ever starts to feel dangerous or uncomfortable for you, you tell me immediately. I won't lie to you. There are aspects of my life that are complicated, but your safety and peace of mind come first. Pamela studied him carefully. Your world. That's an interesting way to phrase it. Maya said there were rumors online about your business. Shady stuff. My father's legacy is complicated. I'm working to make it less so, but that takes time. I understand if that's a deal breaker. Is any of it illegal? Not anymore. But the transition from what was to what I'm trying to build isn't always clean. She appreciated his honesty even as it unsettled her. I'm going to need to think about that. Of course. But I'm still willing to try the tea thing. See how it goes. Tomorrow? 2 o'clock. Make it Wednesday. I have the day off. Wednesday at 2. He stood, then hesitated. Thank you, Pamela, for not just dismissing this. Me, thank you for being honest. That's rarer than you might think. After he left, Pamela sat in the booth for another 10 minutes, her mind spinning. Maya appeared from wherever she'd been obviously eavesdropping. Girl, what just happened? I think I just agreed to have tea with someone way outside my league. Your league? Pamela King, you're amazing. Don't you ever let anyone make you feel like you're not good enough, including yourself. It's not about being good enough. It's about being smart. Getting involved with someone like him? That's a complication I don't need. Maybe Maya allowed. Or maybe it's exactly the kind of risk you said you wanted to take. Didn't you wish for courage? I'm starting to regret that wish. Too late. The universe already heard you. Wednesday arrived wrapped in gray January cold, the kind of weather that made staying in bed feel like a moral victory. Pamela changed her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans, ankle boots, and a wine-colored sweater that her best friend always said made her skin glow. Not trying too hard, but not hiding either. The tea house occupied a narrow building between a Korean grocery and a karaoke bar. Inside, everything was wood and warm lighting, traditional Korean lattice screens creating intimate spaces within the larger room. An elderly woman greeted Hyun-ki with such obvious affection that Pamela relaxed incrementally. This is Pamela, he said in Korean, then switched to English. Pamela, this is Mrs. Song. Her grandmother owned this building since 1975. Welcome, Mrs. Song said warmly. Any friend of Hyun-ki is precious to us. Please sit. I'll bring the afternoon set. She led them to a private alcove overlooking a tiny garden somehow thriving despite the season. Once they were alone, Pamela exhaled. This is beautiful. It's one of the few places I can actually relax, Hyun-ki admitted. Mrs. Song doesn't care about my position or my father's reputation. She just cares that I appreciate good tea and that I'm polite to my elders. Smart woman. Mrs. Song returned with a tray bearing a delicate tea set and small plates of traditional sweets. She poured for them with practiced grace, the steam rising between them like a veil. So, Pamela said after Mrs. Song had departed, where do we start? The beginning? Tell me something true about yourself that you don't usually share. She sipped her tea, considering. Okay, true thing. I have a degree in art history that I've never used. I got it because I loved learning about how people create meaning and beauty even in the hardest times. But after graduation, I couldn't find work that paid enough to cover my student loans, so I started waitressing as a temporary thing. That was 5 years ago. Do you regret it? The degree? No. I regret being practical. I regret not fighting harder for what I loved. She met his eyes. Your turn. Something true. Hyun-ki set down his teacup carefully. I'm terrified every single day that I'm going to fail. That I'll make the wrong decision and people will get hurt. My father ran his empire through fear and absolute control. I'm trying to build something different, but I don't always know how. And I can't show weakness or uncertainty because the moment I do, someone will try to take everything. The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it's also my responsibility. My father's choices created this situation. I have to deal with the consequences. Do you resent him for it? Sometimes. Mostly I just miss him. He wasn't always the man he became. When I was young, he used to take me to the park and tell me stories about growing up in Korea, about coming to America with nothing but determination. Somewhere along the way, survival became more important than living. I don't want to make the same mistake. They talked for 3 hours, the afternoon fading into evening without either noticing. They talked about family and loss and dreams deferred, about the weight of expectations and the courage required to disappoint people, about being seen and being invisible, and how sometimes being invisible felt safer. My grandmother used to say that love was an action, not a feeling, Pamela shared. She said feelings come and go, but choosing to show up for someone, choosing to see them fully even when it's hard, that's real love. I didn't understand what she meant until she got sick. Watching my mom take care of her day after day, even when it was exhausting and heartbreaking, that was love. Your grandmother sounds like she was remarkable. She was. She saw people, you know? Really saw them. Like your mom did with me on New Year's. That's a gift. My mother has been pushing me to live more fully since my father died. She's terrified I'll disappear into duty the way he did. Is that why you came back to the restaurant? Because she pushed you. She planted the seed. But I came back because I wanted to. Because for the first time in years, I wanted something that wasn't about obligation or strategy. I wanted to talk to you again. The honesty of it hung between them, delicate and dangerous. I'm scared, Pamela admitted. Your world is so different from mine. I don't know how to navigate it. Then don't. Just be yourself. That's all I'm asking for. Is it? Because eventually, if this continues, I'll have to meet people from your life. People who won't understand why you're spending time with a waitress. People who'll have opinions about who's good enough for you. I don't care about their opinions. But I do, she said quietly. I care because I've been judged my entire life for not fitting into neat categories. Too black for the white spaces, too educated for the working class spaces, too working class for the educated spaces. I'm tired of being someone's controversial choice. Hyun Ki reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. You're not controversial. You're extraordinary. And anyone who can't see that isn't worth your concern. That's easy for you to say. You have power. You can afford not to care what people think. My entire life is about what people think. Every decision I make is calculated to maintain balance, keep peace, project strength. But with you, I don't want to calculate. I just want to be. Pamela looked at his hand, so close to hers, representing a choice she wasn't sure she was ready to make. But she'd wished for courage, hadn't she? She closed the distance, her fingers brushing his. The contact sent electricity through both of them, the simple touch somehow more intimate than anything either had experienced in years. Okay, she said softly. We try this. But slow, remember? And honest. Slow and honest, he agreed. I can do that. They left the tea house as evening settled over the city, the streetlights casting golden pools on the sidewalk. Can I walk you home? Hyun Ki asked. Pamela hesitated. My apartment is in Washington Heights. That's pretty far from here. I don't mind. You'd mind if you saw it. It's a 5th floor walk up, and the building's definitely not up to your standards. Pamela. He said her name like it meant something. I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner with my parents and grandmother. My father didn't have money when we arrived in America. He built everything from nothing. I remember what struggling looks like. She studied his face, looking for condescension and finding only sincerity. Okay. But fair warning, my neighbor plays salsa music at volumes that violate multiple city ordinances, and the elevator's been broken since October. They took the subway together, an experience that clearly unsettled Hyun Ki's bodyguard, who materialized from nowhere and maintained careful distance in the next car. Pamela noticed, but didn't comment. This was his world, and she was beginning to understand that constant vigilance was the price of his position. On the train, packed with evening commuters, they stood close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive that reminded her of cedar and rain. A drunk man stumbled against her, and Hyun-Ki's hand moved instinctively to steady her, protective without being possessive. "Thank you," she murmured. "Always." The simplicity of that word felt like a promise. They emerged at her stop into a neighborhood alive with its own rhythm, bodegas still open, children playing despite the cold, music competing from different apartments in a cultural symphony that some might call chaos, but Pamela called home. "It's different up here," Hyun-Ki observed. Different good or different bad? Different real. Koreatown can feel sterile sometimes, everyone performing their role. This feels lived in. They climbed the 5 flights, Pamela pretending she wasn't winded while Hyun-Ki showed no signs of exertion. His bodyguard remained in the lobby, a compromise that had been negotiated with hand signals Pamela pretended not to understand. Outside her door, she turned to face him, suddenly nervous. "This is me. Can I see you again? You just spent 3 hours with me. And I'd like to spend 3 more. And 3 after that." He smiled, a real smile that transformed his serious face into something younger, more vulnerable. "I'm not good at this. At dating or whatever this is. I don't have a manual for it. Neither do I. My last relationship ended because he said I was too independent, too unwilling to need him. Apparently, being self-sufficient is threatening to some men's egos. Then he was an idiot. Your independence is part of what makes you remarkable. You barely know me. Then let me know you better. Dinner on Friday? Somewhere public, casual. Your choice of restaurant." Pamela bit her lip, fighting the urge to protect herself by saying no. "There's a Caribbean place in Brooklyn I love. Very low-key. Would that be okay?" "It sounds perfect. It's really casual, Hyun-Ki. Like plastic chairs and paper plates casual. Your bodyguard will hate it. My bodyguard can deal with it." He paused, then added, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why did you say yes?" "To tea, to seeing me again. You're clearly ambivalent about this, about me. It would be easier to walk away." She considered lying, offering something simple and safe. But they'd promised honesty. "Because when you looked at me on New Year's Eve, I felt like I mattered. Not as a waitress or a pleasant face or someone's temporary interest. Just as myself. And I haven't felt that in a long time. Maybe ever." He moved closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel his warmth in the cold hallway. "You do matter. I hope I can keep making you feel that way." "I hope so too." After he left, Pamela leaned against her door, her heart racing like she'd run a marathon instead of just shared tea and conversation. Her phone buzzed immediately, Maya, demanding details. "It was nice," she typed back. "Nice? Girl, you spend 3 hours with a gorgeous, rich man who looks at you like you hung the moon, and all you give me is nice." Pamela smiled despite herself. "Fine. It was really nice. He's thoughtful and honest and kind of lonely. And he makes me want to believe in possibilities. That's more like it. When are you seeing him again?" "Friday. Caribbean place in Brooklyn." "Ooh, taking him to Marva's? That's serious. You only take people you like to Marva's. It's a test. If he can handle Marva's interrogation and the goat curry, he might be worth keeping around." "Smart woman. Now get some sleep. You look like you need to process." Pamela did need to process, but sleep felt impossible. Instead, she opened her journal and wrote, "Today I took a risk. I don't know where it leads, but for the first time in years, I'm excited to find out." The next 2 days passed in a strange suspended reality where Pamela found herself simultaneously excited and terrified about Friday. She caught herself smiling at work for no reason, then immediately second-guessing everything. What was she doing? What did she really know about this man except that he made her feel seen and his mother was lovely and somewhere in his world there were shadows she didn't understand? Maya watched her internal struggle with knowing amusement. You're overthinking. I'm thinking exactly the right amount. This is complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Simple is boring. Simple is settling. Simple is also safe. And when has safe ever made you happy? Pamela couldn't answer that because Maya was right. Every time she'd chosen safe, she'd ended up feeling half alive, going through motions without meaning. Thursday evening, her mother called. Baby, how are you? I haven't heard from you since New Year's. I'm good, Mama. Working, living. The usual. You sound different. Lighter. Something happened? Pamela hesitated. Her mother was protective, skeptical of anything that seemed too good to be true. But she also respected honesty. I met someone. It's very new, very tentative. But I like him. Tell me about him. He's Korean, 34, takes care of his mother. Respectful, thoughtful. We're taking things slow. What does he do? He runs his family's business. Real estate, mostly. Her mother's silence spoke volumes. Real estate in New York means money. What's his family think about him dating a black woman? I haven't met them yet. Just his mother, who is very kind to me. Baby, I'm not trying to rain on your parade. But you know how these things go. Rich families have expectations. They want daughters-in-law who look a certain way, come from certain backgrounds. I don't want you getting hurt. I know, Mama. I'm being careful. But not too careful, I hope. Your grandmother always said you had to risk your heart to find out what it was capable of. Just promise me you'll protect yourself while you're risking it. I promise. After they hung up, Pamela sat with her mother's concern, understanding it came from love and experience. Her mother had raised her alone after her father left when Pamela was 6. She'd watched her daughter navigate a world that often seemed determined to make her feel like she was too much or not enough. Of course, she was protective. But Pamela was also 32, and she'd spent enough years being careful. Maybe it was time to be brave instead. Friday arrived cold and clear, the kind of January day where everything felt sharp-edged and possible. Pamela dressed in layers, jeans, boots, a fitted turtleneck, and a vintage leather jacket she'd found at a thrift store in college. Casual, but put together. She wore her hair natural, the curls framing her face in a way that had taken years to fully embrace. Hyun-ki had offered to pick her up, but she'd insisted on meeting him there. She needed the train ride to center herself, to remember who she was outside the bubble of their conversations. Marva's occupied a corner in Bed-Stuy that gentrification hadn't quite reached yet, a holdout of authentic Caribbean cooking in a neighborhood increasingly invaded by coffee shops with minimalist aesthetics. The restaurant had been there for 30 years, Marva herself holding court behind the counter, judging customers with the same exacting standards she applied to her curry goat. Pamela arrived first and immediately spotted Marva's raised eyebrow. You brought a man here, Marva announced, not asked. I'm meeting someone, yes. Someone special? Maybe. I don't know yet. Well, he better have good manners and an appreciation for proper food. I don't serve my cooking to people who want mild seasoning or boneless everything. This is serious cuisine. I know, Marva. That's why I brought him here. A test, then. Smart girl. Your grandmother raised you right. When Hyun-ki arrived 5 minutes later, looking somewhat out of place in his tailored coat and expensive shoes, Marva's examination was immediate and thorough. His bodyguard had stayed outside after a brief, tense negotiation that Pamela had watched through the window. You must be the maybe special someone, Marva said, her Trinidadian accent making it sound both welcoming and challenging. I hope to be, Hyun-ki replied with unexpected charm. Pamela's been telling me your curry goat is legendary. It is. But legendary food requires legendary appetite. You squeamish about bones or spice? My grandmother fed me Korean hot peppers before I could walk. I can handle spice. Marva's expression softened fractionally. We'll see. Sit. I'll bring you what you need. They settled at a corner table, plastic chairs and checkered tablecloth exactly as Pamela had promised. Hyun-ki looked around with genuine interest, taking in the framed photographs of Trinidad, the hand-painted menu board, the tight-knit family atmosphere. This is wonderful, he said. You haven't tried the food yet. I'm not talking about the food. I'm talking about the feeling. This place has soul. You can't manufacture that. Pamela relaxed incrementally. Marva's been here since before I moved to New York. I found this place my first week in the city when I was lonely and overwhelmed and missing home. She took one look at me and brought me a plate of food without me even ordering. Said I looked like I needed feeding. I've been coming back ever since. So this is a meaningful place for you. This is a place where I'm seen. Like your tea house. We all need those spaces, I think. Marva returned with plates piled high, curry goat, rice and peas, fried plantains, and vegetables in a spicy coconut sauce. The portions were generous to the point of absurdity. Eat, she commanded. And if you waste my food, don't come back. Hyun-ki ate with genuine appreciation, navigating the bones without complaint, savoring the complex spices. Pamela watched him, looking for signs of performance and finding only honest enjoyment. This is incredible, he said after several bites. The spice builds. My grandmother would love this. Your grandmother likes Caribbean food? My grandmother likes all food. She says eating is how you understand a culture. She'd spend hours in our tiny kitchen trying to recreate dishes she'd tasted in different neighborhoods. Korean food was home, but she wanted to know her neighbors too. She sounds wonderful. Is she still alive? His expression clouded. She passed when I was 17. Cancer. It was fast and brutal, and it broke something in my father. He became harder after that, more focused on legacy and power. I think he was terrified of being forgotten, of her being forgotten. I'm sorry. Losing grandmothers is losing anchors. That's exactly what it felt like. She was the one who reminded us that success meant nothing without kindness. After she died, my father forgot that lesson. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the restaurant filling up around them with the early dinner crowd. Families, couples, groups of friends, all comfortable in this space, all trusting Marva to feed them well. Can I ask you something personal? Pamela ventured. Anything. Your father's business. The transition you mentioned. What exactly are you transitioning from? Hyun-ki set down his fork, clearly choosing his words carefully. My father came to America with nothing. He worked legitimate jobs, restaurants, construction, dry cleaning. But he also did other work. Protection services for Korean businesses, loan facilitation for immigrants who couldn't access traditional banks, mediation for community disputes. Some of it was necessary because the system failed our community. Some of it crossed legal lines. Crossed into what? Extortion, sometimes. Loan sharking. Gambling operations. Nothing violent. My father drew hard lines around violence. But profitable and illegal nonetheless. He met her eyes. When he died, I inherited an empire built partially on fear. I've spent 5 years dismantling the illegal operations, transitioning to legitimate real estate development, creating legal loan programs for immigrant businesses. But you can't just flip a switch on that kind of power structure. There are people who depended on the old ways, who resent the changes. It's been complicated. Dangerous. Sometimes. Less now than before, but yes, sometimes. Pamela absorbed this, appreciating his honesty even as it complicated her feelings. Thank you for telling me the truth. I promised honesty. But I understand if this changes things for you. It does, she admitted. But not necessarily in the way you might think. My uncle spent 10 years in prison for selling drugs. He wasn't a bad man. He was a desperate man in a system designed to punish poverty. I understand that sometimes survival means making complicated choices. Your uncle, is he out now? He died in prison. Diabetes that didn't get treated properly. My aunt never recovered from losing him. She paused, old grief surfacing. The world isn't as simple as good people and bad people. It's mostly just people trying to survive with the tools they have. That's more grace than I deserve. Maybe, but I'm not going into this blind. If we continue, I need to know what I'm walking into. Are there still threats? Still people who might come after you? Some. I have security for a reason. But I've been careful to keep my personal life separate. The people I care about aren't targets because no one knows they matter to me. So if this continues, I'd need to stay secret? Not forever. But initially, yes. Once I'm certain the remaining opposition has been neutralized, once the transition is complete, then I'd want the world to know. But right now, advertising vulnerabilities would be dangerous. Pamela sat back, processing. I need to think about this. About what I'm willing to risk. I understand. Take whatever time you need. Marva appeared with plates of coconut cake, setting them down with her usual authority. Dessert. On the house, because you both look too serious. Life's too short for serious faces while eating my cooking. After she left, Pamela smiled despite the heavy conversation. She's not wrong. No, she's not. Hyun-ki picked up his fork, then set it down again. Pamela, I don't want to be another complication in your life. If this is too much, if my world is too messy. Everything worth having is messy, she interrupted, remembering Maya's words. The question is whether it's the right kind of mess. Whether it's mess that builds something or mess that just destroys. I want to build something. With you. If you're willing. She looked at this man who'd walked into a restaurant and somehow seen past the uniform and the smile to the person underneath. Who talked about his fear and his loss with raw honesty. Who ate Caribbean food in a plastic chair without complaint and looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the world. I'm willing to try, she said finally. But we need more boundaries. More clarity about what this is and where it could go. Tell me what you need. I need to meet your mother properly. Not as your waitress, but as someone you're seeing. If she has concerns about me, I need to know. She'll love you. She already does. I need to know what being with you would actually look like. Not just these isolated dates in neutral spaces. What would it mean to be part of your life? It would mean being at family gatherings and business dinners eventually. Meeting people from my world who will judge and gossip and test you. It would mean dealing with my mother's loving interference and my security's constant presence. It would mean navigating cultural differences and probably facing racism from people in my community who think I should marry Korean. And you're okay with that? With a pushback. I'm exhausted by living for other people's approval. You make me feel like myself. That's worth fighting for. Pamela took a bite of her coconut cake, the sweetness cutting through the heaviness of the conversation. Okay, next step, I meet your mother properly. And you think about whether you're really ready for this, for me, for all the complications that come with being with someone who doesn't fit neatly into your world. I've already thought about it. Every day since New Year's Eve. Think about it some more. Because I'm not a fantasy or a rebellion. I'm a whole person with my own complications and dreams and baggage. And I won't be anyone's secret shame or their social experiment. You could never be either of those things. They finished their meal, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, favorite movies, childhood memories, books that had changed them. The ease between them returned, natural as breathing. Outside the restaurant, the winter night had turned sharp and clear, stars somehow visible despite the city's light pollution. Hyun-ki's bodyguard materialized like a well-dressed shadow. Can I take you home? Hyun-ki asked. I'd like that. In the car, a modest sedan rather than the conspicuous luxury vehicle she'd expected, They sat close enough that their hands brushed on the seat between them. Neither moved away. "When can I see you again?" he asked as they pulled up to her building. "Tuesday. I'm off. But this time, I want to see your world. Where you live, how you spend your time. No more neutral territory. You want to see my apartment? I want to see you in your natural habitat. If we're doing this, I need to understand all of you, not just the version you show me in tea houses and restaurants. Tuesday then. I'll send a car for you. I can take the subway. Pamela." He turned to face her fully. "I have security for real reasons. Please, let me pick you up. It's not about control. It's about keeping you safe." The sincerity in his voice made her relent. "Okay, but don't send anything too flashy. I don't need my neighbors thinking I'm selling drugs to afford a Mercedes." He smiled. "A subtle car. I promise." Before she could overthink it, she leaned across the space between them and kissed his cheek. "Thank you for dinner. For honesty. For being patient with my caution. Thank you for giving me a chance." She climbed out of the car and didn't look back until she reached her building's entrance. When she turned, he was still there, watching to make sure she got inside safely. Upstairs, Maya was waiting in her apartment. Pamela had given her a key years ago for emergencies, which Maya interpreted broadly. So, Maya demanded before Pamela had even closed the door. "So it's complicated and real and scary, and I think I might actually be doing this." "Doing what?" "Taking a real risk. Letting someone in. Believing that maybe I deserve something more than just surviving." Maya hugged her fiercely. "About damn time. Your grandmother would be proud." That night, Pamela didn't write in her journal. Instead, she lay in bed thinking about courage and risk, about the difference between being careful and being afraid. Somewhere across the city, in a world she barely understood, Hyun-ki was probably thinking similar thoughts. The universe had heard her wish. Now she had to be brave enough to see where it led. If you're enjoying this story of slow burn romance and emotional risk, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you think about Pamela and Hyun-ki's journey. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when Pamela enters Hyun-ki's world. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. Tuesday arrived with unexpected snow, the kind of gentle. Flurries that made New York look softer, almost magical. Pamela changed her outfit 4 times before settling on black slacks, a cream sweater, and her good coat, the one she usually saved for job interviews and special occasions. The car that arrived was indeed subtle, a dark blue sedan that wouldn't attract attention. The driver was professional and kind, asking about her music preferences for the ride. She appreciated Hyun-ki's attention to these small details, the way he tried to make her comfortable even in unfamiliar territory. They drove to a building in Koreatown that looked unremarkable from the outside, but once they passed through security, multiple layers of it, she noted everything changed. The penthouse elevator required a key. The hallway on the top floor held only 2 doors. Hyun-ki opened his door before she could knock, as if he'd been waiting. "Welcome," he said, and she heard nervousness in his voice that matched her own. The apartment was spacious, but not ostentatious, decorated with clean lines and careful attention to both Korean and modern aesthetics. What struck her most was that it felt lived in, books stacked on tables, a throw blanket draped over the couch, photographs on shelves showing younger versions of Hyun-ki with his parents and grandmother. "This is beautiful," she said honestly. "It's too big for one person. But my mother insists I need space for when she visits, and for eventual." He stopped himself. "For eventual what?" "She's hoping for grandchildren someday. She's not subtle about it." Pamela laughed. "My mother's the same. Every phone call somehow circles back to, when are you going to settle down and give me grandbabies?" "Mothers," he said with affection. He gave her a tour, the kitchen where he admitted he rarely cooked, The office where stacks of paperwork suggested the weight of his responsibilities. The guest room his mother claimed whenever she stayed. His own bedroom he left closed, respecting boundaries she appreciated. The living room windows offered a spectacular view of the city, the snow making everything look like a snow globe. "This is where I think," he said, standing beside her at the window. "Early mornings before the world needs me, late nights when I can't sleep. I stand here and try to remember why all of this matters." And do you? Remember? Sometimes. My father built this empire to prove he belonged in America, to show that immigrants could be powerful. But power without purpose is just noise. I'm still figuring out what my purpose is. Maybe it's building something better than what you inherited. Maybe it's being the bridge between your father's world and something new. He looked at her with such intensity that she felt exposed. How do you do that? Do what? See the hope in things. The possibility. I've spent so long focused on problems and threats that I forgot there could be another way of looking at things. That's not seeing hope. That's just refusing to let fear make all my decisions. His mother arrived an hour later, sweeping in with the authority of someone who'd long ago stopped caring what anyone thought of her. She carried bags of groceries and purpose. Pamela. She embraced her like they were already family. "I'm so happy to see you again. Hyun-ki told me you were coming. I thought we could cook together, get to know each other properly." "I'd love that," Pamela said, meaning it. In the kitchen, Mrs. Choi moved with practiced efficiency, pulling out ingredients for japchae and kimchi stew. She handed Pamela vegetables to chop and began asking questions that seemed casual, but were clearly reconnaissance. "So you grew up in Atlanta?" "Yes, ma'am. Until I was 18, then I came here for college." "And your family? Are they supportive of you?" "Very. My mother worries, but she wants me to be happy. She raised me alone after my father left, so she's protective." Mrs. Choi nodded approvingly. "Single mothers are strong. They have to be." "And your grandmother?" "Hyun-ki mentioned she influenced you greatly." "She did. She taught me that kindness wasn't weakness, that you could be soft and still be strong." She died 3 years ago, and I still miss her every day. The good ones stay with us. Mrs. Choi's hands stilled over the vegetables. My mother-in-law was like that. She kept my husband human when the world tried to make him hard. After she died, he changed. I couldn't stop it, couldn't bring back the man I married. I won't let that happen to my son. The raw honesty of the statement hung in the kitchen. "Is that why you're here?" Pamela asked gently. "To make sure I'm good for him? I'm here because I saw something on New Year's Eve. I saw my son remember how to feel. And I saw you, a young woman who treats people with dignity regardless of who they are. That's rare. That's precious." She met Pamela's eyes. "But yes, I need to know your intentions. Are you curious about a rich man's world? Looking for security? Or do you see my son as a person worth knowing? I see him as someone who's lonely and trying hard and deserves to be seen as more than his position. I see someone who makes me want to be braver. And I'm here because I'm tired of playing it safe, of making myself smaller to fit into other people's comfort zones." "Good answer." Mrs. Choi resumed chopping. "But know this, dating my son means entering a difficult world. There will be people who judge you for your race, your background, your profession. Some will be cruel. Some will assume you're after money. Can you handle that?" I've been handling judgment my whole life. Being a Black woman in America means developing thick skin early. The question is whether Hyun-ki can handle the racism he'll face for being with me. Whether he's ready to disappoint people who expect him to marry a nice Korean girl from the right family. Mrs. Choi smiled broadly. "I like you even more now. You're right to worry about that. My son has spent his life meeting expectations. Choosing his own path won't be easy for him, which is why I need to know he's really choosing, not just rebelling or trying something different. I won't be anyone's experiment. You won't be. I know my son. When he commits completely. The question is whether he'll let himself commit to something his father wouldn't have approved of. Hyun-ki appeared in the doorway, clearly aware they'd been talking about him. My father wouldn't have approved of a lot of things I do now. At some point, I had to decide whether I was living his life or mine. And which are you living? His mother challenged. I'm trying to live mine. It's harder than it sounds. They cooked together, the kitchen filling with familiar smells and easy conversation. Mrs. Choi told stories about Hyun-ki's childhood, the time he'd tried to run away from home at age 6 and made it exactly 3 blocks before getting hungry, the way he'd insisted on wearing a suit to kindergarten because he wanted to be professional. He was always serious, she said fondly. Even as a baby. My husband used to joke that Hyun-ki was born 40 years old. Someone had to be responsible, Hyun-ki protested, but he was smiling. Over dinner, the conversation deepened. Mrs. Choi asked Pamela about her dreams, her art history degree, her plans for the future. I want to open a cafe someday, Pamela admitted. Not fancy, just a place where people feel welcome. Where someone having a rough day can get good coffee and real conversation. Where art is on the walls and there are books to borrow and it feels like community. That's a beautiful dream, Mrs. Choi said. What's stopping you? Money mostly. Startup costs are significant and I don't have savings. I've been paying off student loans and just surviving. If money weren't an obstacle, then fear, probably. Fear of failing. Fear of being responsible for something that big. Fear of admitting I want more than what I have. Fear is reasonable. But it's also often a liar. Mrs. Choi reached across the table and took Pamela's hand. My husband was terrified when he started his first business. But he did it anyway because staying safe felt like dying slowly. After dinner, Mrs. Choi announced she was leaving, despite Hyun-ki's protests that it was late. I have a car, I have a driver, and you two need time without an old woman chaperoning. She hugged Pamela warmly. Come to my house for tea soon. I want to show you photos of Hyun-ki as a chubby baby. He hates when I do this, which makes it even more fun. After she left, Hyun-ki and Pamela sat on the couch, the city lights creating patterns on the floor. Your mother is formidable, Pamela said. She's protective. But she likes you. If she didn't, you'd know. She asked me about my intentions. Like we're in a period drama. And what are your intentions? He asked, turning to face her. Honestly? I don't know yet. I'm attracted to you. I like talking to you. I think you're lonely in ways I understand. But I'm also scared. Your world is so different from mine, and I don't know if I can navigate it without losing myself. I don't want you to lose yourself. I want you to be exactly who you are. That's easy to say now. But what happens when your business associates meet me? When your community starts gossiping? When people make assumptions about why we're together? Then we face it together. And anyone who can't respect you doesn't deserve access to my life. That's a big promise. I know. But I mean it. He reached for her hand, his touch tentative. Pamela, I haven't felt this way about anyone in years. Maybe ever. You make me remember that life can be more than duty and obligation. That's not small. She looked at their joined hands, his olive-toned skin against her darker brown, thinking about all the ways the world would judge this simple gesture. But in his apartment, in this moment, it felt right. Okay, she said softly. We keep going. But promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll tell me if this gets too hard. If choosing me means sacrificing things that matter to you. I need to know you won't resent me later for complicating your life. I promise. And you promise me the same thing. If my world becomes toxic for you, if it's costing you too much, tell me. Your peace matters more than my comfort. They sat in silence, the unspoken understanding between them settling like snow outside the windows. This thing between them was fragile and new, but it was also undeniably real. Around midnight, Hyun-ki's driver took Pamela home. She spent the ride thinking about Mrs. Choi's stories, the warmth of the kitchen, the way Hyun-ki looked at her like she was essential. Maya was asleep on her couch again, clearly having let herself into wait for details. Pamela covered her with a blanket and went to bed with a full heart and a quiet sense of hope. The following weeks unfolded in a careful dance of growing closer while respecting boundaries. They saw each other twice a week, sometimes for meals, sometimes just for walks through neighborhoods neither had explored. Hyun-ki came to her world, eating at diners in Washington Heights, meeting Maya and gradually relaxing into the casual warmth of her community. Pamela ventured further into his world, attending a business dinner where she smiled through patronizing questions and Hyun-ki's hand on her back was the only thing keeping her grounded. They talked about everything: family expectations and the weight of legacy, race and the different ways it shaped their experiences, fear and courage and the thin line between them. Their conversations had depth that neither had found elsewhere, the kind of intimacy that came from genuine curiosity and mutual respect. But they also navigated challenges. The first time someone made a racist comment about Pamela within Hyun-ki's hearing, his response was so coldly furious that the person literally backed away. Pamela appreciated his defense, but worried about the rage she saw simmering beneath his controlled surface. "You can't fight everyone who disrespects me," she told him afterward. "I can try, but I need you to trust that I can handle it. I've been dealing with racism my whole life. Your anger on my behalf is sweet, but it can't become my problem to manage." He'd taken that feedback seriously, learning to let her handle situations unless she asked for support. It was a small thing, but it mattered, the difference between being protected and being patronized. They had their first real argument 6 weeks in over something seemingly trivial. Pamela had mentioned wanting to visit her mother in Atlanta, and Hyun-ki immediately offered to pay for her flight. "I can pay for my own ticket," she'd said, more sharply than intended. "I know you can. I was just trying to help." "I don't need that kind of help. I'm not a charity case. That's not what I meant. I have resources, and I care about you. Wanting to make your life easier isn't about thinking you can't handle it yourself. But it is, though. It's assuming I need your money to solve my problems. I've been taking care of myself for a long time, Hyun-ki. I don't need rescuing." They'd parted angry that night, both feeling misunderstood. But the next morning, Hyun-ki called before Pamela had even finished her coffee. "I'm sorry," he said without preamble. "You were right. I was trying to fix something that wasn't broken. Your independence isn't a problem to solve, it's part of who you are. I should have just listened when you said you were excited about visiting your mom, not immediately tried to throw money at it." Pamela exhaled, her own anger dissipating. "I'm sorry, too. I got defensive when you were just being generous. I have issues around money and power dynamics. My ex used to offer to pay for things and then hold it over my head later, like I owed him something. It made me reactive. That's important for me to know. I don't ever want you to feel indebted to me. If I offer something, it's because I want to, with no strings. But I'll also respect when you say no. And I'll try to assume good intentions instead of preparing for the worst." The argument, and more importantly, the repair, deepened their connection. They learned how to fight productively, how to name hurt without weaponizing it, how to come back together stronger than before. By late February, Pamela realized she was falling in love. It terrified her. She was folding laundry in her apartment when the recognition hit. She loved his quiet intensity, the way he listened like her words mattered, how he remembered small details she'd mentioned weeks ago. She loved his relationship with his mother, the respect he showed service workers, the way he was genuinely trying to be better than his father's legacy. She loved that he made her want to dream bigger, take more risks, believe she deserved extraordinary things. But love also meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant potential devastation. Maya found her staring into space, a half-folded shirt in her hands. You okay? I think I'm in love with him. Girl, we've known that for weeks. You're just now catching up. This is terrifying. What if it doesn't work? What if his world is too much? What if I'm not enough? What if the sun explodes tomorrow? You can't live your life preparing for every possible disaster. Maya sat beside her. You told me you wanted courage to want more. Well, this is what more looks like. Scary and uncertain and absolutely worth it. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just finally need the wisdom I've been offering for free all these years. That evening, Pamela called her mother. Mama, I need to talk to you about Hyun-ki. The man you've been seeing for 2 months and have barely told me about? Yes, let's talk. I'm falling in love with him. Maybe already have fallen. And it scares me because his world is so complicated and different from mine, and I don't know if I'm making a huge mistake or the best decision of my life. Her mother was quiet for a long moment. Baby, do you remember what I told you when you were deciding whether to move to New York? You said that staying safe meant staying small. That I'd never know what I was capable of if I didn't take risks. And was I right? Yes. New York was hard, but it made me who I am. Love is the same way. It's a risk. It might break your heart. But playing it safe means never experiencing what you're capable of feeling, of being, of building with another person. Her mother paused. Your grandmother loved your grandfather with her whole heart. When he died, I asked her if she regretted it, loving someone so much that losing them nearly destroyed her. You know what she said? What? She said she'd choose that love 1,000 times over, because those years of being fully alive with him were worth a lifetime of grief. That's what real love is, baby. It's choosing to be fully alive even when it's terrifying. After they hung up, Pamela sat with her mother's words, feeling something shift inside her. She'd been so focused on protecting herself from pain that she'd forgotten joy required vulnerability too. She texted Hyun-ki, "Can you come over tonight?" He arrived an hour later, concern in his eyes. "Is everything okay? I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen." They sat on her worn couch, and she took his hand. "I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have. And it scares me because I've spent so long protecting myself, keeping people at arm's length, never letting anyone get close enough to really hurt me. But you make me want to be brave. You make me believe that maybe I deserve extraordinary things." She paused, gathering courage. "So I'm telling you this not because I need you to say it back, but because honesty is what we promised each other. And honestly, I'm terrified and hopeful and more alive than I've felt in years." Hyun-ki's expression transformed, surprise melting into something that looked like relief and joy and vulnerability all mixed together. "I've been in love with you since that first New Year's Eve," he said quietly. "Since I watched you move through that chaotic restaurant with such grace, treating everyone with dignity. Since my mother saw something in you that made her believe I could be happy again. Since you looked at me like I was just a person, not a position or a problem. You could have told me. I was terrified. You kept talking about taking things slow, and I didn't want to pressure you or scare you away. But Pamela, you're the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing before I sleep. You've made me remember what it feels like to want a future that isn't just obligation. You've made me want to build something real." She kissed him then, a kiss that held weeks of restraint and uncertainty finally released. It was tender and urgent and full of promise, the kind of kiss that felt like a beginning. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we stop being careful. Now we actually try. Really try." He cupped her face gently. "I want you to meet my family, not just my mother, but my cousins, my business partners, the people who matter in my life. I want them to know you're important to me." That's a big step. I'm ready for it. Are you? Pamela thought about her grandmother's wisdom, her mother's encouragement, Maya's unwavering support. She thought about the wish she'd made on New Year's Eve for courage to want more. The universe had answered, and now she had to be brave enough to accept what it offered. Yes, I'm ready. They spent the night talking about the future, what it might look like, what they hoped for, what scared them. Hyun-ki admitted he wanted to eventually propose, to build a life together. Pamela shared her cafe dream in more detail, and he listened with the kind of attention that made her feel heard. They didn't solve everything, didn't eliminate all obstacles, but they committed to facing them together. The next month brought integration into each other's lives in deeper ways. Pamela met Hyun-ki's extended family at a gathering that was simultaneously welcoming and overwhelming. His cousins were curious and mostly kind, though she caught whispers and sidelong glances that reminded her she was breaking unspoken rules about who belonged in this world. His mother's presence helped, her clear approval providing a shield against more overt disapproval. One of Hyun-ki's business partners, an older man named Mr. Park, cornered Pamela at the dessert table. "So you're the one who's caught our Hyun-ki's attention," he said in accented English. "I suppose I am." Unusual choice for him. His father would have expected someone more traditional. Pamela met his gaze directly. Unusual can be good. Sometimes tradition is just another word for limitation. Mr. Park studied her, then smiled. "Perhaps you're right. Hyun-ki has always been too bound by his father's expectations. Maybe you'll help him break free." He paused. "But understand that many people are invested in who he becomes. His choices affect more than just himself." "I understand that. But he deserves to make his own choices, not just inherit everyone else's expectations." Spoken like someone who's never had to balance duty and desire. It wasn't said unkindly, but the weight of it settled over Pamela nonetheless. After the party, she felt exhausted in ways that went beyond physical tiredness. Hyun-ki drove her home, sensing her mood. "That was a lot," he said. "Your world is intense. Everyone's watching, judging, calculating. It's like being on stage constantly. I'm sorry. I know it's not easy. I'm not saying I can't handle it. I'm just acknowledging that it costs something. Emotional energy, sense of self, the ability to just be without performing. If it costs too much, stop. I'm not backing out. I'm just being honest about the challenge. That's what we promised, remember? Honesty about the hard parts." He pulled over, turning to face her fully. "You're right. And I need to be honest too. Being with you publicly, making our relationship known, it's already caused friction. Some of my business partners think I'm being foolish, risking my credibility for romance. There's been talk about whether I'm fit to lead if I can't even manage my personal life according to community standards. And what do you say to that? I say that their approval isn't worth losing you. That I'd rather build something authentic than maintain something hollow. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't affect me, didn't make me question myself sometimes. I appreciate that honesty. It helps to know I'm not the only one struggling with this." They sat in the car for another hour, talking through fears and frustrations, slowly learning how to navigate a relationship that existed in the space between two very different worlds. Spring arrived slowly in New York, winter reluctant to release its grip. But by early April, the city began to thaw, and with it came new possibilities. Hyun-ki surprised Pamela by asking her to come look at a space with him, a corner location in a neighborhood halfway between Koreatown and Washington Heights. "What are we looking at?" she asked as they stood before a vacant storefront with large windows and good bones. "A potential cafe location. I've been researching your dream, looking at what it would take to make it real. This space is available, reasonably priced, and in a neighborhood that could use exactly what you described, a welcoming place for community." Pamela stared at the space, emotion tightening her throat. "Hyun-ki, I can't afford this." "I know, but I can invest in it. Not as charity, but as a genuine business investment." You'd own 51%, maintain creative control, and final say on all decisions. I'd be a silent partner providing capital and business expertise. You'd pay me back from profits over time. Why would you do this? Because I believe in you. Because your dream is beautiful and deserves to exist. Because I want to support you the way you've supported me. He turned to face her. I know you're wary of accepting help from me, but this isn't about rescue. It's about partnership. About betting on something we both believe in. She looked at the space, imagining it filled with light and art and comfortable chairs. Imagining regulars who knew her name, conversations that mattered, a place that felt like home. I need to think about it. I need to make sure I'm saying yes for the right reasons, not just because it's offered. Take all the time you need, but know that I mean this. I've watched you make everyone else's spaces better. You deserve your own space to shape. That evening, Pamela called her mother, Maya, and her best friend from college, convening an impromptu phone conference to think through the offer. This is huge, Maya said. This is your dream being handed to you. But is it really my dream if someone else makes it possible? Or does that make it his dream that he's letting me play in? That's not fair, her best friend interjected. Having a partner with resources doesn't diminish your dream. It just means you have support most people don't get. The question is whether you trust his intentions and whether you're comfortable with the strings that might be attached. He says there are no strings. Do you believe him? Her mother asked. Pamela thought about the past 3 months, Hyun-Ki's consistency, his respect for her boundaries, the way he'd worked to understand her concerns instead of dismissing them. She thought about how he listened, how he'd changed behaviors when she explained they hurt her, how he'd opened his life to her even when it was uncomfortable. Yes, she said finally. I believe him. Then the question isn't whether to accept help, her mother said. It's whether you're ready to build something big. Whether you're ready to step into the version of yourself who owns a business and takes up space and refuses to play small. That's the scary part. What if I fail? What if you don't? Maya countered. What if you're amazing at this? What if you create exactly the kind of space the city needs? After the call ended, Pamela sat with her journal and wrote a list of fears and a list of hopes. The hopes outweighed the fears, but only barely. At the bottom of the page, she wrote her grandmother's words, "You're not made for boxes. You're made for wide open spaces." She texted Hyun-Ki, I want to do this. But I need a lawyer to review the partnership agreement, and I need a year to plan and save some capital of my own. I won't go into this with nothing but your money. I need skin in the game too. He responded immediately. That's more than fair. I'll have my attorney draw up terms for your lawyer to review. And I think waiting to properly plan is wise. Good things are worth doing right. The next year unfolded in a careful balance of deepening relationship and professional preparation. Pamela worked with a small business consultant that Hyun-Ki's mother recommended, taking night classes in business management and accounting. She saved every spare dollar, determined to contribute meaningful capital to her dream. Hyun-Ki supported without pushing, offering advice when asked, but respecting her need to figure things out herself. Their relationship weathered more challenges. There was the family wedding where a drunk relative made racist comments loud enough for everyone to hear, and Hyun-Ki's immediate defense created a rift that took months to repair. There was the moment when Pamela's jealousy flared when she saw Hyun-Ki with a Korean woman who was exactly what his community expected, beautiful and accomplished and from the right family. There was the argument about whether Pamela should quit her waitressing job before the cafe opened, Hyun-Ki worrying about her exhaustion while Pamela insisted she needed the income and the structure. But they learned to fight and repair, to name hurt without weaponizing it, to choose each other even when it was hard. They built something real in the space between their different worlds. Mrs. Choi became one of Pamela's fiercest supporters, treating her like a daughter and openly discussing her hopes that they would marry soon. I'm not getting younger, she'd say. I want to see my son happy and settled before I'm too old to enjoy grandchildren. Mother, you're 65 and healthier than most 40-year-olds. Hyun-ki would protest, but his eyes would meet Pamela's with shared understanding that his mother's interference came from love. By the following New Year's Eve, exactly 1 year after they'd met, Pamela and Hyun-ki returned to the restaurant where it had all begun. The owner had reserved their original table, touched by the romance of their story. "A year ago, I walked into this restaurant feeling half alive," Hyun-ki said over dinner. "I was functioning but not living, surviving but not thriving. You changed that. You reminded me what it felt like to hope." "A year ago, I was hiding," Pamela replied. "Playing small, settling for less, convincing myself that safe was good enough. You challenged that. You made me believe I deserved more." As midnight approached, the restaurant filled with the same celebratory chaos as the year before. But this time, when the countdown began, Hyun-ki reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I know we haven't talked about this specifically," he said over the noise. "But I need you to know that you're not temporary for me. You're not an experiment or a phase. You're the person I want to build a life with." Pamela's heart raced as he opened the box to reveal a ring simple, elegant, with a stone that caught the light like captured starfire. "I'm not asking you to answer now," he continued, "but I'm asking if you'd consider becoming my wife. If you'd consider building this cafe and this life and this future together. Not despite our differences, but because of them. Because we make each other better." The countdown reached 10 seconds. Around them, strangers prepared to kiss and cheer. But in their corner of the crowded restaurant, time seemed suspended. "Yes," Pamela said as the countdown hit 5. "Yes, I'll consider it. Actually, I don't need to consider it. Just yes." He slipped the ring on her finger as the restaurant erupted in celebration, and they kissed as midnight struck, sealing a promise that had been building since that first New Year's Eve when a lonely man and a tired waitress had seen each other truly. Around them, their worlds continued, complicated and messy and full of challenges they'd still have to navigate. But they'd built something strong enough to weather storms, something rooted in honesty and respect and the courage to choose love over fear. Mrs. Choi, who'd been waiting at a nearby table with barely contained excitement, rushed over to embrace them both. "Finally. I thought I'd die before seeing my son happy. Mother, you literally just saw us last week." "Yes, but now I can see you happy and engaged. It's completely different." She squeezed Pamela's hand. "Welcome to the family, officially. Though you've been family since the moment I met you." The rest of the evening blurred into joy and celebration. The restaurant staff brought out complimentary champagne when word spread about the engagement. Strangers toasted them, caught up in the romance of it all. Pamela felt suspended in a moment so perfect it seemed impossible, like surely something would go wrong because life didn't actually give you fairy tale endings. But as she looked at Hyun-ki, at his mother's delighted face, at the ring on her finger that represented not just love, but genuine partnership and respect, she let herself believe that maybe some stories did get happy endings. Not perfect ones, they'd still face prejudice and cultural clashes, and the daily work of choosing each other. But happy ones nonetheless. They left the restaurant after 2 in the morning, the city quiet in the way it only gets in the space between celebration and hangover. Snow had started falling again, thick flakes that made everything look new. "I love you," Hyun-ki said as they stood on the sidewalk, neither ready to end the night. "I love you too. Even though you're going to make me deal with your mother's wedding planning opinions. She's going to have so many opinions. I'm counting on it. I always wanted a mother-in-law who actually liked me." They walked through the snowy streets, hand in hand, talking about nothing and everything. About wedding plans and cafe opening dates and the future they'd build together. About fear and courage and the space between them where love lived. 6 months later, the cafe opened its doors. Pamela had named it Wide Open Spaces, a tribute to her grandmother's wisdom. The walls displayed rotating art from local artists. Hyun-ki had insisted on supporting emerging talent. The coffee was excellent, the atmosphere welcoming, and within weeks, it had become exactly what Pamela had envisioned, a community hub where people felt safe to be themselves. Maya worked there part-time, managing social media and events. Mrs. Choi visited 3 times a week, always bringing Korean pastries to share and offering unsolicited, but usually helpful business advice. Hyun-ki came by most mornings before heading to his office, sitting in the corner with his laptop, watching Pamela move through her space with the same grace she'd shown in the restaurant where they'd met. The wedding took place in the fall, a blend of Korean and African American traditions that confused some guests, but delighted others. Pamela's mother walked her down the aisle, and Mrs. Choi performed the piebeek ceremony with such joy that everyone ended up in tears. The reception featured both kimchi and collard greens, both traditional Korean music and R&B, both cultures honored and celebrated. There were still challenges. Some of Hyun-ki's business associates never fully accepted Pamela. Some of her extended family worried she'd changed, sold out, forgotten where she came from. There were moments of doubt, moments when the weight of navigating between worlds felt crushing. But there were more moments of joy, of lying in bed on Sunday mornings, planning their future, of Pamela teaching Hyun-ki to make her grandmother's cornbread while he taught her his grandmother's kimchi recipe, of building something that honored both their histories while creating something entirely new. 2 years after opening, Wide Open Spaces had become a neighborhood institution. Pamela had expanded to offer evening events, poetry readings, art shows, community organizing meetings. She'd hired 3 more employees, all people who needed second chances the way she once had. The cafe wasn't just profitable, it was meaningful. One quiet Tuesday afternoon, Mrs. Choi stopped by with news that made Pamela's hands shake. "I'm pregnant," Pamela said, the words still feeling unreal. "Just 8 weeks. We weren't really trying yet, but..." Mrs. Choi's shriek of joy could probably be heard in New Jersey. A grandchild. Finally. "I'm going to be a grandmother. You can't tell Hyun-ki. I want to tell him myself tonight. My lips are sealed. But I'm also going to start knitting immediately." She paused, her expression softening. "Your grandmother would be so proud of you. Building this life, taking these risks, becoming the woman you were always meant to be." Pamela felt tears prick her eyes. "I wish she could meet her great-grandchild. She'll know them through you." That's how love works. It echoes forward through generations. That evening, Pamela told Hyun-ki over dinner in their apartment, the same apartment where she'd first told him she was falling in love. His reaction was everything she'd hoped for, shock melting into wonder, pulling her into an embrace so tight she could barely breathe, whispering promises about the life they'd build for this child who wasn't even born yet. "They're going to be so loved," he said, his hand on her still flat stomach. "So loved and so seen and so free to become whoever they want to be. We're going to mess up sometimes. Being parents is terrifying. We'll mess up together. And we'll figure it out together. Just like everything else." On New Year's Eve, 3 years after that first meeting, they returned once more to the restaurant. This time, Pamela was 6 months pregnant, her belly a gentle curve that Hyun-ki couldn't stop touching. They sat at their table, the table where love began, the owner now called it, and reflected on how far they'd come. 3 years ago, I was terrified," Pamela said. "I didn't know if I could handle your world, if I was brave enough to want more. And now? Now I know that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing love despite the fear. It's about building something real in the space between different worlds. It's about believing you deserve extraordinary things and then doing the work to create them." "You've taught me that," Hyun-ki said quietly. You've taught me that I don't have to choose between duty and happiness, that I can honor my father's memory while building a different kind of legacy. That love doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave enough to be human. As midnight approached, they stood together at the window, watching the city prepare for another year of possibility. The baby moved inside Pamela, a flutter of life that felt like promise. Happy New Year, Hyun-ki whispered as the countdown began. Happy New Year, Pamela replied, her hand in his, her other hand on her belly, surrounded by love that had been built slowly, carefully, courageously. The restaurant erupted in celebration around them, but in their corner, they simply held each other, grateful for every risk they'd taken, every fear they'd faced, every moment they'd chosen love over safety. Outside, the city glittered with hope and possibility, full of other stories waiting to begin. But this story, their story, had found its happy ending in the middle, in the choosing to keep showing up, keep being honest, keep building something beautiful in the space between different worlds. Love, it turned out, wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone real and choosing them every day. It was about courage and compromise and the daily work of seeing another person fully. It was about building bridges instead of walls, about expanding instead of diminishing, about believing that different worlds could meet and create something entirely new. And as Pamela stood in the restaurant where she'd once been just a waitress, now a wife and mother-to-be and business owner who'd learned to take up space in her own life, she understood what her grandmother had meant all along. Love was action. Courage was choice. And she'd chosen well. The midnight kiss tasted like promise and possibility, like 3 years of learning to be brave, like a future full of challenges they'd face together. Around them, strangers celebrated and cheered, but all Pamela heard was Hyun-ki's whispered words against her ear. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for teaching me how to live. Thank you for the same, she whispered back. Thank you for everything. And in that moment, surrounded by celebration and love and the baby growing inside her, Pamela King understood that she'd kept her New Year's wish from 3 years ago. She'd found the courage to want more. And more had found her in return. If this story of slow burn romance, cultural bridges, and finding courage to build extraordinary love moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever taken a risk on love that scared you? Have you ever had to navigate between different worlds for someone you cared about? Your stories matter, and I'd love to hear them. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next emotional journey. Until next time, remember, you're not made for boxes. You're made for wide open spaces.